So the question for today is, one of the recommendations of the Center for Policy Scrutiny was for the government to reassess the 25 and 50% income tax incentives granted to businesses operating 2 and 3 shift cycles, respectively, under the 24H plus. Argue for or against this motion. May I know which team is going for? Okay, and this is against. So we'll take your introductory statement, just 3 minutes.
Okay, so before that,
Yes, please.
to add the arguments.
Yes, please.
Are we supposed to introduce each point and then the against to come at us, or how is it going to?
So for your
Let's bring all our points out and then we also.
So for your opening statement, just 3 minutes. So you just give us just an introductory. Then they also give an introductory. Then for the next session, you go in depth into your argument. That is for 5 minutes. Yes. So the first one is just an introductory statement.
Excuse me. So when you are done, let me know. Then I transfer the microphone. Okay. Yes. So we can leave it on the table.
Yes. Let me give hers to them.
Oh, okay. So
Yes. Once they talk, once your time is up, I'll just do this. Then take over.
Okay, so my name is Emanuela and we are for the motion, and the Center for Policy Scrutiny suggested that the government should rethink or reassess the 25% and 50% income tax revenue given to companies that work 2 or 3 shifts a day under the 24-hour program. Now, the 24-hour economy and export program is Ghana's national plan to transform the economy from exporting raw materials to producing and exporting more value-added goods. Now, it's part of the president's agenda and is built on 3 main pillars. The first one is production transformation. Second is supply chain and market efficiency, and finally, human capital development. Now, the program works through 8 sub-programs, which is Grow, Make, Build, Show, Connect, Fund, Aspire, and Go, each focusing on a different area like agriculture, manufacturing, skills, and financing. Now, what does the Grow means? It focuses on agriculture and agro-industrialization. And when we come to Make, it focuses on industrial, manufacturing, and expansion. And our Build also focus on infrastructure development and housing delivery. When we come to Show, it also focuses on cultural commercialization and tourism promotion. Then Connect focuses on logistics and market infrastructure. Now, Fund focuses on financing instruments for private sector growth. Aspire, which focuses on skill development and workforce readiness. And finally, Go focuses on public engagement and national mobilization. Since its inception, the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development program has attracted considerable attention, drawing criticism, reviews, and recommendations from opposition parties, independent organizations, and various stakeholders. Now, the Center for Policy Scrutiny, the CPS, one of the independent bodies reviewing the program, has recommended that the government reconsider the 25% and 50% income tax incentive offered to businesses operating 2 and 3 shift system under the 24-hour initiative. Now, for the arguments for the motion is one of the key dominants of the 24-hour program's success lies in the willingness of industries to adopt 2 and 3 shift production systems aimed to enhancing productivity, increasing output, and ultimately boosting corporate revenues. However, there is a perception that many firms remain constrained by Ghana's relatively high income tax rate, which can significantly reduce profit margin despite increases in production output. Recognizing that taxation serves not only as a vital fiscal instrument, but also as a strategic policy lever for driving industrial transformation. The government has introduced 25% and 50% income tax incentives for firms operating 2 and 3-shift system under the 24-hour initiative. This policy seeks to lower effective tax rates, enabling firms to retain a greater share of their earnings and making shift adoptions. Finally, in doing so, it is expected to stimulate job creation, enhance industrial competitiveness, improve capacity utilization, and in the long term, broaden the tax base through expanded production and employment. Nonetheless, while tax incentives are often employed to stimulate industrial activity, granting such incentives indiscriminately to all companies operating 2- and 3-shift systems may not be economically prudent and could fail to achieve its intended objective for the following reasons.
So, argument against the reassessment of the 25% and 50% income tax incentives under Ghana's 24-hour economic policy. The 24-hour economic policy represents a bold strategic initiative by the government of Ghana to stimulate industrial productivity, job creation, and economic diversification. This initiative, anchored in Ghana's medium-term national development policy framework, 2022 to 2025, and the Industrial Transformation Agenda, Ministry of Trade and Industry, 2023, encourages businesses to operate beyond the conventional 8-hour workday through multi-shift systems. To alleviate the additional operational costs associated with such extended production cycles, the government provides income tax incentives 25% for businesses operating 2-shift and 50% for those with 3-shift. Ministry of Finance, 2024. However, the Center for Policy Scrutiny has recently proposed a reassessment of these incentives, citing fiscal pressures and concerns about revenue sustainability. While these arguments may hold merit for a short-term fiscal standpoint, a reassessment at this stage risks undermining the developmental intent of the 24-hour initiative. This paper argues that maintaining the 25% and 50% tax incentives is essential for sustaining industrial expansion, promoting employment, enhancing investor confidence, and ensuring long-term fiscal stability. Tax incentives are widely recognized as a critical fiscal instrument for stimulating private investment and driving economic transformation. In developing economies like Ghana, where high operational costs, infrastructure gaps, and market inefficiencies impede growth, well-targeted fiscal incentives compensate for structural weaknesses and attract productive investment, said in 2006. The 25% and 50% tax incentives under a 24-hour framework are not mere concessions, but strategic instruments to accelerate industrial upgrading and capacity utilization. Empirical evidence from countries such as Rwanda and Vietnam demonstrate that sustained tax incentives can enhance competitiveness, encourage technology transfer, and deepen industrial linkages. UNTANK 2020 and World Bank 2023. Premature reassessment could reverse these gains, disrupt policies continuity, and diminish Ghana's attractiveness as a destination for industrial investment, promoting continuous industrial production and productivity. Operating a 24-hour production cycle imposes significant financial burdens on firms, ranging from high energy costs, security expenses, and night shift allowances to increase machinery maintenance. World Bank 2022. Without compensatory tax relief, many firms would be unable to sustain continuous operations profitably. Ghana Investment Promotion Center 2023. According to the International Labour Organization, multi-shift production models can sustainably improve total factor productivity and optimize resource utilization when supported by enabling fiscal policies. By reducing effective tax liabilities, the 25% and 50% incentives serve as a cost-balancing mechanisms, promoting continuous production, minimizing idle capacity, and enhancing national productivity. Removing or reducing this incentive risks discouraging firms from multi-shift operations, thereby reversing productivity gains and slowing industrial momentum.
Okay. Thank you very much for your opening statement. So we'll move straight into your argument.
All right.
Kindly introduce yourself before you speak, so we know who exactly is speaking.
All right. So my name is Inusa Yusuf Salman Faris, and I stand before you to strongly support the motion that the government should reassess the 25% and 50% income tax incentives which are granted to businesses operating the 2 and 3 shifts under the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development program. Why? This is because while the intention behind this incentive is, yes, it is noble, that is to encourage continuous production and then job creation. But the design, the logic, and that of the fiscal impact of these incentives is totally flawed, and then it is basically unsustainable. Our first point is the incentives are not basically linked to productivity or job creation. Why? They reward process and not the results. According to the page 11 of the CPS report, shift patterns alone do not constitute a sufficient basis for determining eligibility for tax subsidies. So let's unpack that. A company could run 3 shifts without increasing output or employment. It might just decide to rearrange its existing workforce into different time slots. Yet, under the current policy, it still qualifies for the 25% and 50% tax rebate. That means that the government is basically losing more revenue without even gaining any meaningful impact. We are not basically incentivizing growth, but basically we are just subsidizing the routine operations. So ladies and gentlemen, if we are serious about building a result-driven 24-hour economy, incentives must be performance-based and not presence-based. So our second point is the tax basically breaks or it poses a serious fiscal risk in the Ghana's current economic climate. According to the CPS review, it made it clear that Ghana's public investment is already in decline, averaging just 2.8% of the GDP over the past decade and is expected to even fall better. So in that context, granting broad automatic tax rebates to thousands of firms, regardless of their actual economic contribution, is basically fiscally reckless. Now, as the CPS team warns us, poorly structured incentives risk inefficiency and revenue loss. In plain terms, we can't afford to give money that we don't even have. So a reassessment doesn't mean we are saying you should abolish it. No. But it means that you have to restructure them so that they are strategic, they are targeted, and then they are sustainable. So our third point is Ghana needs smarter, not basically larger incentives. Instead of the blanket tax cut for this particular shade, it should be granted, or before they grant these particular incentives, it should be based on the measured increase in output, the verifiability that there is job creation, and then also there's export work performance, not just basically people are just running shifts. No, it should be granted based on whether, yes, we are verifying that, okay, yes, there is what? Job creation, there is what? Production. So our fourth point would that be, unchecked tax incentives can also it can distort fair competition, because when you give tax rebates to few firms simply because they can afford night operations, that means that you are tilting the playing field. Smaller enterprises who are the startups, they are usually the one even giving more employment. So even if we are giving it to the larger companies, that means that who form the backbone of this government, that means that they are basically disadvantaged. Are we okay with that? So reassessing these incentives will ensure something like equity amongst these larger and then the smaller firms. So finally, reassessment is about alignment, not just opposition. So we are not saying that the 24-hour initiative is bad. On the contrary, it is visionary. It aims to transform Ghana from a raw material exporter into a value-added, job-rich economy. But vision without coherence is basically chaos. Okay, so if we fail to reassess this, we risk undermining the very program meant to drive transformation. So the CPS report calls for transparent costing and then phased fiscal planning. And that starts with the critical reviewing policies like this one. So reassessment is not rejection. It is basically what? Refinement. Thank you.
Okay, so like he rightly said, I'm Sarah. He rightly said that in his argument that provision have not been made. I want to put it to him that provision have been made by the policy. When you look at the 24-hour policy, there has been a provision for funding, which reads that an increase between 0.10 and then 0.25% on existing 0.75% exempt levy on affected imported finished products, imposition of excise levy on selected products within the value chain, and then there will be strict enforcement of valuation compliance measures on products within the valuation chain. The levies that will be imposed on A and B will be imposed on imported finished products in the sectors where Ghana has a clear potential for local substitution. So meaning, with these impositions that will be made on this high level end products, government can get the money from that sector to help with wherever the loss of incentives or tax would be to boost the economy. Also, he made mention of that there will be job creation and that it won't enhance productivity, which I want to put to him that it won't be true. Because if you are doing an 8-hour shift system where you are producing 1,000, thereby you are going to now add on additional 16 hours. It automatically makes sense, and it is logic that the remaining 16 hours would give you additional 2,000 production. If you are doing 8 hours for 1,000, definitely you are going to add on more produce with your additional 16 hours you are going to have. So for you to say that it's just going to be a shift system, I don't agree to it. Also, the fact that she also made mention of the fact that companies are just going to enhance or enlarge their profit to keep to themselves. I also disagree to that. I disagree to that because we all know of creative accounting where accountants use this creative accounting to manipulate financial reports. But with this incentive giving, they will want to show to the government that because you've given us this incentive, we have made this much profit. And then it's going to enable accountants and it's going to enable accountants to have a transparent financial report. They will state their profit as it is, and this time they won't undermine their profits when they have to report their financial report. I also want to put to him that this policy already has a fund that has been created, which is the Strategic Value Chain Development Fund. So this fund, together with GIPC, is going to make sure that whatever monies that will be put for this incentive will be put to good use, so that it wouldn't just be in vacuum.
So we'll take some responses from them and then we'll come back to
All right, so basically to my co-debater, technically we are not saying that this particular incentives should not be granted to these particular companies running these ships. It has to be given. But it should not be based on these particular ships they are running. It should be based on, okay, yes, you are running the shift. Are you increasing your productivity? That is the question. Can we verify that, yes, you created what? Additional employment? That is basically the question we are asking here. If there is verifiability that, yes, there is job creation, then you can be granted. So that's why we are saying it should not be based on the presence. It should be based on what? The performance. So it should be based on what? Performance. It should be performance what based. That's why we are saying, yes, the initiative is very good, but the logic behind it is basically what? Flawed. That is just the issue here. Are we okay with that? So yes, if they are able to create jobs, if they are able to increase what the production, then yes, they can grant them what? That particular. But if you are just running the ship without increasing any productivity, that means that government is basically more like losing more money without any economic what? Benefits. Are we okay with that? So that is basically what we are arguing for. And not basically they should abolish it or what. They have to just reassess it so that it will be based on their performance. It should be given to companies based on whether they increase what their productivity, or we can verify that they've created what an additional what job. Simple.
I think his argument is very pathetic in the sense that in my submission earlier on, I had made mention that it promotes continuous industrial production and productivity. Okay, so in the quest to reassess, for example, let's look at the International Labour Organization, which says that multi-shift production models can substantially improve total factor productivity and optimize resource utilization, when supported with enabling fiscal policies. Okay, so if I'm giving you a 25% and 50% incentive respectively, are you arguing that it will not give counter productivity? Are you trying to say that it will not increase productivity? It is just people putting people in the offices to run 24 hours and it doesn't make any sense. Again, I want to say that his point is flawed because the creation of jobs, apart from the creation of jobs, this policy would also seek to reduce poverty in the sense that it has a strong employment and social inclusion implication. Social shift operation inherently require additional labor to sustain production and productivity, whereby directly generating employment across skills levels. Maintaining current tax incentive ensures that firms retain fiscal motivation to expand their workforce. With youth unemployment rating exceeding 20% and underemployment persistently high, the 24-hour economy policy framework support Ghana's objectives under sustainable development goals. You can check, and the African Union's Agenda 2063 Goal 8, which emphasizes decent work and inclusion growth. Moreover, by increasing formal sector employment, the policy contributes to poverty reduction and improve living of standard through higher household incomes and consumption multipliers.
All right, so to my co-debater, I'm going to ask you. So for instance, in your company, are you okay with that? Your company, they decided to give you that particular tax rebate, which is the 25% and then the 50%. Basically, if you run the shift, we are going to give it to you. As a company or as a manager, I can basically decide to just basically what? My existing workforce, I can just decide to divide them so that some will be coming in the shift. That means at the same time, I'm still enjoying that particular what? Tax rebate. So the question is, or the thing is, you are not supposed to do it, or you are not supposed to grant it just basically that some people can basically just decide to just divide their workforce so that some will be coming in the nines, others, and they will still enjoy it. Meanwhile, it will not basically what? Create any employment. So there has to be verification that yes, it is creating what? Jobs, additional what? Jobs, or productivity is what? Increasing. No one is saying this should be what? Abolished. No, it is a good word initiative. It's a good word incentive, but it should be based on what? Performance. That is just what we are saying. Are you okay with that?
Please, his argument is flawed. I want to give a very practical example.
Okay.
I live in the enclave of industries, which is Tema. Recently, we have the Centio refinery, who are into the production of local tiles now. I can tell you for practical, for a fact that we have a low limit of bad incidents of criminals within Tema and Ashama, all thanks to some of these companies that have come into the system within Tema and Ashama. Look at it. From morning, afternoon, evening, you have Centio buses lined up, picking young boys and girls to factories to work. If not for this shift system, those guys would have been armed robbers, chasing us around when we close from schools late at night. But however, due to this, they have increased productivity. You bear with me, I don't know how old you are, but growing up, you couldn't afford tiles. We all had to live on bare floors. But now, thanks to Centio tiles production, we can afford tiles and buy local tiles to tile our houses. Aside that, let me also give you some other practical example. I grew up when we had Tor, Valco, Aloex in the system. We are always told that we should have other incomes and other stuff. But I will put to you that my dad grew up having only one job, working with Tema Oil Refining. And he worked only that job throughout his life. How was he able to do that? Because Tor was running 3 shifts, he was able to get this employment with Tor. So you can imagine Tor as at that time having just a 1-shift system. How would my father been employed to cater for 6 of us? But because Tor was running a 3-shift system, he had employment and he was able to cater for us. So I want to put to you that it is not just going to be about employment, but we are going to have results for it. Now look at us. We have to buy high, fuel prices are high just because we don't have a refinery in Ghana. Thanks again to Centio Refinery that has come up with a refinery company. Very soon, I'm sure will feel the impact of lower prices of fuel in our system.
I think that our opponents are in effect trying to support us, because what they are trying to say is that instead of reassessing, which they are speaking for, they are rather telling us that we should encourage the government to reinforce these incentives while strengthening compliance, transparency, and monitoring systems. Because from all your arguments you are making, you are telling us that it is good not to reassess, but then let's look at whether or not we can reinforce these incentives, we can strengthen compliance, in every sector of the 24-hour economy. Thank you.
So please, before he ends, I also want to add to what he just said, that if you are saying you are not going, if you are saying you are going to do the reassessment, based on what? Are you saying because you are not going to see value for production, or you are not going to see increase for production? Put the systems and mechanisms in place where, when an organization comes and tells you that I'm going to run a 2-shift or a 3-shift system, you don't just allow them and then give them the tax incentive. However, it is up to you, the government, going to give this tax incentive. Put up clear mechanisms and structures. Tell them, how are you going to increase productivity? Give us results. Let us have results for what you are going to do, and then based on that, this incentive would give results.
That's what he
said. I think they are still circling around the fact that we are not abolishing it. We are only saying that we need to see that the firms that we are giving the incentives to, they qualify. We need to verify them. You mentioned the company at Kema. Now you said that it's able to run shifts. Let's say now this 24-hour economy is implemented, and then we give them this incentive. We should be able to verify that they are not using the same labor force to get the incentive that is being given them. Yes. We are not saying abolish it. You say it, we come back and say no. We are saying we should be able to verify that these people have this number of people that they are giving the incentive for, and also production has increased. You mentioned something about accountants cooking figures, and then I also want to say that at the long run, companies and management is interested in increasing profits. So if we are able to, if they will be getting incentives here, in a way they will still want to lower costs by not adding more people to the right now the workforce that they have. So in a way they will still maintain the same people and then try to get the incentive that is being provided. So we are not saying abolish. We are saying there should be a system that will be able to verify these companies that we will be incentivizing. Then we'll go from there, and then the production will also increase. And also taking off the people from the streets that will be chasing us at night.
Okay. No, you have said it now. You have said it. I have to hold you for now. I mean, both teams make very good arguments. So we'll take your closing statement and your recommendation. We'll start from the against, because you seem to have a lot to say. Yeah. So your closing statement and your recommendation. So what are you saying?
So I take the statement, then he takes the recommendations.
Okay. In 3 minutes.
Yes. So the recommendation by the Center for Policy Scrutiny to reassess the 25% and 50% income tax incentives under Ghana's 24-hour economic policy is economically premature and strategically misplaced. These incentives remain vital tools for sustaining industrial productivity, employment creation, and investor confidence. The long-term economic benefits outweigh the short-term fiscal concerns. Rather than reassessing, the government should reinforce these incentives while strengthening compliance, transparency, and monitoring systems. Sustaining the 24-hour policy aligns with Ghana's industrialization agenda and global competitiveness objectives. With enhanced infrastructure and institutional support, the incentives can catalyze inclusive and sustainable economic growth, advancing Ghana toward a resilient 24-hour economy. With the recommendations.
So our first recommendation is that we maintain the existing incentive structure for a minimum of 5 to 10 years to allow stability and evaluation. 2, conduct sector-specific impact assessment rather than the blanket reviews.
Thank you.
3, enhance monitoring and compliance mechanisms to prevent misuse of incentives. For instance, Ghana Free Zone Board is given to almost all the companies, and most of the foreign companies work after 5 years. After they are done with their tax incentive, they fold up, they go back and reorganize and start a new company. 4, promote public-private partnership to share operational costs. And then the last one, to adopt a gradual phase-out strategy only after measuring policy assessment
Thank you for
indicators
supporting us.
are achieved.
Thank you for supporting us.
For our recommendation, to address the above limitations, a more targeted and performance-based approach is required. Tax incentives should be directed towards high-impact sectors such as agro-processing, manufacturing, and logistics, where job creation and export potential are greatest. Again, incentives must also be tied to measurable outcomes, including employment growth, output expansion, and export performance to enhance accountability and ensure policy effectiveness. Furthermore, strengthening monitoring and evaluation mechanism and tax system through close collaboration among Ghana Revenue Authority, the Ministry of Finance, and the National Development Planning Commission will be essential to promote transparency, improve fiscal discipline, and prevent potential misuse of incentive framework. In conclusion, proposition closing statement. Mr. Madam Moderator, Honorable Judges, distinguished Mr. Madam Moderator, Honorable Judges, distinguished opponents, ladies and gentlemen, at the heart of the debate lies a simple question. Should Ghana blindly maintain tax incentives and may cost billions without guaranteed benefits, or should we reassess them to ensure they truly serve the people? The answer is clear. We must reassess, because good policy is not about giving away revenue. It's about generating real value. The 25% and 50% tax rebates for two and three shift businesses sound impressive on paper, but as the CPS report warns, they are not tied to productivity or job creation. A company could shuffle the same workers across shifts, still enjoy massive tax breaks, while the government bleeds revenue. In an economy where public investment is falling, every cedi must count. Reassessment is not punishment, it is protection of Ghana's fiscal future, protection of fair competition, and protection of the credibility of the 24-hour economy itself. We, the propositions, stand for accountability over assumption, results over rhetoric, and value over vanity. The reassess is to refine, to strengthen, and to ensure that this bold vision, the 24-hour economy, actually delivers what it promises: job, productivity, and inclusive growth for all Ghanaians. So today we argue you to vote for prudence, for fairness, for progress. Vote yes. The government must reassess these tax incentives.
Thank you. Wow. Please, let's give a round of applause to our princess. They've done an amazing job. You can see that a lot of research went into this. You made very, very pressing points. So at this point, we would like to take reflections from the whole class, because I'm sure Prof shared the documents with you and you've seen it. What do you think about it? Do you think it should be reassessed? You can raise your hand and then the microphone will be brought to you. Okay. Miss Stephanie from the CPS wants to make a statement.
Hi everyone. So I would like to first of all introduce our executive director. He just joined us. Okay, so this is Dr. Edu Owusu Sarkodie. He's a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana in the economics department. So I would like him to say a few words and then we can continue with the reflections.
No,
you don't want to? Okay. So I will start with my reflection. I think today we've all experienced how difficult it is to be a policymaker, because you listen to one side and you're like, I saw some people nodding, clapping, then the next time these people spoke, they're also nodding and clapping. at the same time, and I'm like, where do you stand? Because it seems like you are shifting sides, but this is the importance of some of these things, right? It helps you to think that there are benefits and there are pros and cons, let me say, to everything, every decision that you decide to take, right? And that's the kind of some of the reflections that are coming out of this. They make a valid point. So what should we do, right? So these are some of the things that, as we are moving around, as we are talking here, we should be thinking about. What is the best course of action? Because each of them have pros and cons, but which one has more pros than cons? All right. So let's think about some of these things in our reflections, and let's come out with. We are not saying that this person is correct or that person is wrong, but what are some of the things that we think or we can recommend that government should do? Okay. So who wants to go first? Who? Okay. So we have somebody here.
Okay, so as a practical example, I work in an institution that runs the 24-hour economy. And then we also run the shift system. Everything has its advantage and disadvantages, yeah. Just as your opponents were talking about it, you were also opposing and all that. Yeah, but then I wanted to ask a few, okay, let's say one question with regards to the shift system and what recommendation you would think would be suitable for what I'm going to ask. So here is a case that because of the shift system, some of us go, let's say, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Some go 2 p.m. to 10, and then 10 to 6 a.m. Some of us live afar, and as a result, when you are going to the workplace, imagine going to work at 10 to 6. Sometimes I feel like, I don't know, I think you are for the motion, so maybe you are going to help me with it. But then I know the answer will be that discuss with management. But then since we are talking about this, I want to also know your view. Now here is the case that sometimes you are placed at the 10 to 6 a.m. shift, and then considering where you stay, it becomes difficult to go to work. I remember you talking about theft and all those things. So what do you think we can do? Is there a way that maybe this shift system can be maybe adjusted to suit us or something like that? Because everything you were talking about was kind of somehow also based on corporate taxes and then incentives that the company is also going to get. What about we, the employees, too? What do you think the government should do to also protect us, that we are because sometimes when these principles are laid down or these procedures are laid down, sometimes if you don't have the power, there is little you can do. You can complain and then you still come back to your ABC. So what do you think the regulators or the government should do to help we those that we are from afar, and then some are even parents, some are mothers, yes, some are some of us are not even grown, yeah. So that is my question. What do you think can be done to help us to?
So to throw more light to what you just said, we all have an idea of where she works. I think it's a little bit premature for now, per my understanding. It's premature because, like you rightly said, they haven't thought of your commuting to work. With the examples I gave, I made mention of the fact that they have buses that pick these people up. This is a well-thought program from the companies these people work from, because they know that they have to pick staff from various locations at 10 p.m. How do you expect an 18, 19-year-old boy to move from Katamanso, Kubeko to Tema? It can only be the bus conveying them. That is why I'm saying that I think on the part of where you come from, it's a bit premature just to entice or make government machinery popular that this is what they are doing. However, I think when more work is put into it, they can get better results.
I think in addition to her, I want to believe that as much as I agree with her that it may be premature, it also has to do with piloting. Okay, so it is a new policy that has begun. Can we use Adenta to pilot it and see? And piloting, you correct. And piloting, you look at ways and means to make it more effective and more efficient. Okay. No, I'm not reassessing. You are not reassessing the policy. No,
hold on.
You are not reassessing the policy. You are rather looking at strategies to make it more efficient and more effective. And so if the challenge or the constraint has to do with conveying employees to work, then it's something probably they will look at very soon, so that when it is being implemented fully, we know that there are buses or transportation means that is catered for employees from various vantage points. But again, let me play the devil's advocate. If you are 18 years and 19 years, or even you are even 45 years, and you are applying for a job, you stay at Ofanko and you're supposed to work at Adenta, you know, I mean, nobody forces you to apply for the job. And so it is your responsibility. You know you are being paid. I
would like to steer us back to the question for the day. Okay, so the question for the day was that CPS recommended 25% and 50% that government should reassess that tax incentive. So we are not talking about the program as a whole. We are not talking about the shift system as a whole. We are talking about government's tax incentive on the shift system. So let me just steer us back to what we are talking about.
Okay, so on that note, we are still back to the question. Now, if we are able to verify and then identify these companies that will be incurring these expenditures at the long run, we'll be able to provide for them as well. Now, if there is a company that does not need to convey its employees to the workplace, and then there is one that needs to convey its employees to the workplace, who among them should be given maybe the greater part of the incentive? Do you get it? So it's going to be both the management, and then probably in a way the policy will also help. If we are able to identify them, then we'll be assessing the incentives and to suit the expenditures that they will be making as well. So if they get it, they will by all means provide the buses or whatever that is needed for the employees.
Okay.
So we'd like to wrap up in the next 10 minutes.
Thankfully, she said if they get it. So when they get this 25 and 50% tax incentive, invariably it's going to come back to them in the form of money. So if a private company has to run the shift system and they are incapacitated in getting their employees buses, this 25 and 50% tax incentives you give to them can also give them this part to buy these vehicles, to convey this stuff to work.
So you're saying the same thing that she said.
Yeah, so
why verifiability reassessment. It's verifiability reassessment.
So the team again.
Before I come to you to say that I want to be on this program, I would have stated.
So let's take a breather. Let's take a breather. So now I think that
verifiability is not reassessment.
Let's dive a bit into what they recommended, right? And they had mentioned that government should reassess and take a look at it. And they had mentioned something about the administrative processes, which I think we should get into. What are our reflections around that? You are recommending that government should reassess the taxation system and put some key indicators to it. So, for example, prove to me that you have actually employed X number of people before I give you the tax incentive. Can we get into reflections on how much of the administrative processes that have to do? Because remember, it's not just for a year. It's not just for 2 years. It's going to be forever. So what do we think about such administrative? You want to respond?
You see, proving is not reassessment. Proving is not reassessment. Mm-hmm. I think we need to critically define what reassessment is.
So reassessment is that we are not just giving it to anybody who just says, I'm running a shift system. Mm-hmm. But you have to show us the value you have added.
That is not reassessment. I disagree.
No, that is reassessment.
You see,
reassessment is putting the policy in there that now prove to me. That's the reassessment.
Why are you using the word proof?
No, I'm saying that, you see, initially, right now what we have is, if you run the system, we give you the incentive. You qualify for the incentive. We are saying that they should reassess the policy and put in what is it called? They should put in measures and conditions to ensure that there is productivity, there is employment, there is all the benefits we are looking for.
What do you say about the administrative processes that have to do with that?
Have
you seen how laborious that would be for one company? Every time I have to come and report to you that I employed 5 more people, I employed 100 more people, and how frequent should I come and be reporting to you? Can we get into that as part of our reflections? Because you've recommended something. In fact, it's not to you. It's
We are sharing knowledge, isn't it?
So what we said was that the government should align itself with GRA and other ministries. Now we have what's it called? We have how's it called? We have annual financial reporting that tells us the performances and all those things, and we have ministries already. We have independent bodies already that take the annual assessments and then evaluate the performances of business on day-to-day basis. So we can just we can just pick data from them to reassess the output of these companies that we are talking about. That's all.
How long would that take? Like, do you get what we are trying to say?
Okay, so with the administrative process, I don't think the policy will have to wait till people come and say, okay, I'm running it, give me the money. No, it should be this way. Come tell us what you can do. Come tell us how you are going to increase your productivity. So you are already running one shift system. Now you see these incentives and you say, oh, I have plans to expand. I have plans for expansion. So I want to now come on to the two and then 3 shift system. So outline your plans, outline your strategy, your system, where you are going, where we will be able to come in to assess or know that you have given us value for money. So we are not going to just sit to say that, yes, we've given you this incentive, go and do whatever you want with it, but rather come up with what you will be doing with this money that you would get.
So when you say you mean GRA?
No, the center for the companies, because they are.
The tax incentive is given by GRA.
GRA, yes.
Because they are the collection body.
Yes. However, there is a center for this 24-hour policy.
So the secretary is not the one handling these are administrative.
Yeah.
Okay.
GRA is the authorized body
for
that handles all tax and revenue issues.
Yes.
So it's definitely GRA that you would have to go through.
Yes. So I'm saying that you don't just get up and say, I'm running the system, so give me the money. However, you will now go to GRA, outline what you are doing or what you want to do. Then GRA will know that giving you this money is going to help you work on these plans you've brought to us. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
So who wants aside the 2 teams, who wants to comment on what we are talking about? Aside the 2 teams.
Because we are not going to run.
Okay, so let me give it to you.
I just have a separate question from what we are discussing. We know giving tax incentives is a debt or a loss to the country. Now, if we say we should give tax incentives to these companies, the country will be losing. Where will Ghana now get funds to support these companies that we are giving the tax incentives to? That's the question bothering my mind.
Anyone? Okay, he wants to respond. Then we'll wrap up in the next.
Not to respond, but to make a point on what you said.
Okay, please go ahead. So we'll wrap up in the next 5 minutes.
Okay, the name is Yakumi. I think that every policy has a policy objective. So I will take it from the policy objective. And if the objective of the policy is to increase productivity, increase employment and all that, then operationally, I will expect that these parameters are set for the companies. The companies do apply that, yes, I want to do A, B, C, D, which are in line with the policy objective. So at the end of the year, before the incentive is granted, if we set a minimum annual employment to be, say, additional 100 people, then you tell me, yes, in the year I did employ 100 people. And with the systems you have, if you tell me you employed 100 people, we all know that per Ghanaian laws, employees are supposed to be registered under SNIT as well. That's a way of verifying that the people you said you employ, truly you employ them. GRA also goes to confirm whether you were paying, of course, this is a tax incentive. It's not an exemption from income tax. These people that you employed, are they all registered with GRA as well? If they are, then after I have done my own verification of all the assertions you have made, I'm comfortable with it. The incentive is granted. So I think operationally we need to put in these measures to ensure that.
So you're rehashing some of the points that have come up, that yes, even if we are going to give that incentive, it should be measured in a kind of way. There should be some metrics that we should make sure these companies abide by before they can enjoy or partake of such incentives. So anyone else who hasn't spoken, who wants to speak? Yeah, but I want to see if anyone else hasn't spoken but wants to. Your question hasn't been answered, yes.
Someone wants to answer.
Who wants? Anybody that's not on it.
You've already spoken. You've already spoken.
Okay.
I want to answer his question. He said government was going to lose in giving this tax incentive. But I earlier on read that in the funding part of the policy, it states that the government will impose a certain percentage of tax on finished imported products in sectors where Ghana has clear potential for local substitution. So, for instance, Ghana has the potential of creating cars like Kantanka. Why won't government give tax incentives to Kantanka than waiting for people to import cars and then you take those monies? However, when you give this tax incentives to companies like Kantanka, they are going to now produce this car, and then there wouldn't be any loss, because when you decide to import cars, it will now be very expensive for you. If you still go ahead to do that, government gets more money there. So government is not going to lose. If he gives the incentive and you still want to go ahead and import, we still get more money there to make up for the incentives that has been given to those companies.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then Nanaya would wrap up.
Okay, wow. MPhil taxation class, you have a lot to say. Thank you very much once again for our teams. Thank you for the very good recommendations that you've made. We've taken note of all the recommendations. We'll be putting them up again as comments, recommendations that have come up post the paper that we did. And it shows that you actually did your homework. You went beyond the paper and got other information to back whatever statement or whatever point you were coming from. So let's keep the conversation going. It's quite evident that not a lot of people also know the details of the 24-hour. It sounds like just music in our ears, but we don't know exactly what goes into it. So let's encourage more people to read the document, to get to know. The exact document is really huge, but we at CPS, we've done a good summary for you. And once you take a read, you get a good appreciation of everything. So let's keep the conversations going. Let's share the document. You can get it on our website in PDF. It's very easy to download. And let's be part of the nation building. Let's not be spectators, but let's be citizens. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Oh, still afternoon.